On today's show, my special guests are Sylvia, the Executive Director of the Asbury Park Chamber of Commerce, and Samantha Parker, Development and Public Affairs Director for the Society for the Prevention of Teen Suicide. I'm Senator Vin Gopal, and you're watching Made in New Jersey. Welcome back. You're watching Made in New Jersey. I'm Senator Vin Gopal. I'm joined by Samantha Parker, Director of Development and Public Affairs at the Prevention of Teen Suicide. Samantha, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the Society for the Prevention of Teen Suicide does?
Absolutely. So we are not direct service. Essentially, we provide educational resources for parents, educators, and teens, not only here in New Jersey, but nationwide.
So we've seen in the news, not just here locally, but throughout the country, there's been a spike in teen suicide. What are some of the factors that attributes to, and is that something your organization follows closely?
Absolutely. So I always start these kind of conversations off with, I am not a licensed clinician, right? But I have a team at our office that are incredibly smart individuals that tell me all the things that I need to know about this topic. Essentially, there are a lot of different reasons why we've seen a sudden spike. Obviously, one of them has to do with social media and bullying that occurs when it comes to social media. Also, the fact that youth suicide is not a topic that many folks want to talk about. People are very scared and put off by it. And so what our organization does is really works to build competent and confident communities. What that means is we work with teachers, right, at the education level, right? Obviously, we recognize they're a very strong part of our community, but also with parents, with youth agencies, coaches, trusted adults, anyone in the community that can be identified as that trusted adult. So even faith-based leaders to be able to have that communication so that everyone can recognize the warning signs of suicide. And what those warning signs are is, you know, it could be a sudden change in appearance, right? You have a student who is always put together, always on time, now arriving late, looking a little bit disheveled. It's making threats about suicide. You know, very often we talk about, you know, the difference between, is it teen angst or is this a viable threat? So again, it's really giving our community the resources and tools they need to be able to identify this issue.
And the organization is based here in Monmouth County?
It is. We're based in Freehold, so we were founded about 15 years ago by two Monmouth County dads who both lost a child to suicide. And at the time, these are not your philanthropic individuals, they are businessmen, and they wanted to make sure that they could prevent even one family from going through what they went through. At the time, you know, there was a lot of education. Don't drink and drive, right? Don't text and drive. No one was checking in about anyone's mental health, so this was a completely new area for them. And so they did with what they had. They put a group of their coworkers and colleagues and peers together to build our board, and they developed the organization. And we have a national presence. We are one of the only organizations that does this work, in that we are solely focused on suicide prevention. We don't look at the entire lifespan. This is our niche and what we focus on.
And how important is breaking stigma in all this? Because I know stigma plays a large role. Do you have a tough time getting parents to kind of accept that this is a problem? Or
We
schools?
do. It's one of the reasons we have a presentation called Raising Resilient Teens in Challenging Times, right? Because you can get to a parent when you're talking about resiliency. Having a panel named How to Talk to Your Kid About Teen Suicide, not very many people are going to attend, you know? Mm-hmm. One of the things is we do need to break down that stigma. There's nothing wrong with talking about one's mental health. We in the office kind of talk about how if you had a cold, you would go to the doctor, mm-hmm. right? If you are having a mental health challenge, you should be able to go to a doctor and feel comfortable in order to do that. Having a mental health crisis shouldn't be seen as having a disability. It shouldn't be seen as being less than. Many individuals have mental health challenges, but are absolutely contributing individuals in our community.
Sure. And are there any common myths about mental illness and teen suicide that people should be aware of when they hear?
Absolutely. The first is don't talk to your child about teen suicide. You can absolutely talk to your child about teen suicide. Just because you have the conversation does not elicit any ill thoughts in your child's head, right? We want to be careful. We want to be careful in our communication and make sure that we are asking them how they're doing. We don't necessarily want to give them a roadmap. So in talking about teen suicide, especially if there's been a loss in a community or at your child's school, you're not going to talk about the manner in which the child died, right? Because then it makes it very real. We want to have the conversation, but keep it in a safe area. Our clinicians always recommend if you're going to talk to your child about suicide, do it in a car, mainly because they can't go anywhere. The other thing is one phrase that we utilize quite often with parents and trusted adults is saying, tell me more about that. That sounds really frustrating. Tell me more about that. It's not a yes or no answer, and it's a way to really open up for your child. The most important thing is when they do start talking to you, that as a parent or a trusted adult, that you remain quiet and that you listen and you really truly hear what they're saying without sharing about yourself or telling them, oh, it's going to be okay. We really want to make sure that we're validating anything that's shared.
So the organization, is it more of a focus on what you just said, more on access to information and awareness and education, or is there other pieces? What are all the different things that the organization does? Yeah.
So we have a lot of community presentations. I mentioned our Raising Resilient Teens in Challenging Times. We also have Making Educators Partners in Youth Suicide Prevention. That's our online program. So what's really fascinating about that is when the organization started, the organization worked very heavily with our state legislature to pass a law that requires school teachers to have 2 hours of suicide prevention training for every 5 years of professional development. Yeah. Now, it was financially not supported in the sense of it was not mandated. And so we realized we had a problem now, right? Because we were putting a burden on teachers to find this training on their own. So we developed a training. If folks go to sptsuniversity.org, they will be able to find this training, and it's entirely free. And since the implementation of the training, we've trained over 350,000 teachers, not just here in New Jersey, but also nationwide. So that is a nationwide number. I'm really happy to say that we've trained at least one teacher or adult in every single state in our country, which we're really excited about, including Guam, which we're really very excited about. The other thing that I wanted to make sure to mention is one program that we've just recently developed is we are getting a lot of calls both here in New Jersey but also across the country from parents who were having an issue once they brought their child to the ER. They felt that they did not have enough information, they didn't quite understand the process, they were concerned about their child's well-being, and so in recognizing that systems gap, we developed our mental health crisis toolkit. What it is we are currently piloting it in 7 hospitals here in New Jersey, 2 of which are in Monmouth County. And what's really wonderful about that is anytime a child comes into the ER and is given the indication that they're having a mental health crisis, they're given the parent is given the toolkit. Now, as a parent, I can say that if anything were to happen to my child, right, be it a mental health crisis or falling down the stairs, something happens, I'm terrified every single time. She falls down now and I'm scared. So I can imagine that as a parent with a child and having a mental health crisis, you're all over the map, and not sure how to respond. You're terrified for the safety of your child. So what this toolkit tries to do is alleviate some of that pressure. Once you open it up, it has a letter from a parent who has lost a teen to suicide, basically reinforcing that this is not your fault. It's going to be okay. You need to focus on being okay so that you can be okay for your child, but also it has next steps and what to do, right? So what questions are you going to be asking? What can you expect from this experience? Ultimately, this toolkit is having a less traumatic effect on the parents and the child so that their treatment can be a little bit easier and a little bit more seamless, and also so that they know what are next steps once they leave the hospital.
That's great. So God forbid a parent or teacher or someone has a loved one they think might be considering suicide. Mm-hmm. What steps should they take? Should they call your organization? Should they call 911? What are the if the child hasn't said I'm going to kill myself or make some immediate threat, but they have some concerns that the child is going towards risky behavior?
The first thing to do is ask. It's the scariest thing, but saying, have you thought about dying by suicide? Have you thought about suicide? That's the first step. Once you know the answer to that, yes, it is making sure that they're in a safe space, keeping an eye on them, calling whomever it may be, whether it's parents, whether it's 911, whether it's, if something is being shared on social media, you're going to want to get in touch with the police and do a wellness check. You're going to want to make sure to take the steps to keep your loved ones safe.
That's great. And what are some ways, if someone wants to volunteer or get involved in your organization? Do you have events throughout the year?
We
Do you
do.
have activities? And what are some of those volunteer responsibilities?
Absolutely. So we have incredible programs geared toward our youth. We have a youth council in Woodbridge Township, in Monmouth County, and in Ocean County. So those are county-based programs where students come, and it's once a month. They come for 2 hours. They learn about holistic wellness, right? So they're learning about stress management, protective factors, help-seeking factors, coping skills. And we also have a youth wellness summit. We're actually going to be in 7 counties in New Jersey this year: Burlington, Ocean, Monmouth, Middlesex, Morris, Union, Bergen. I think that's it. Might have missed one. But these are day-long events where absolutely we love having community volunteers, because then students get to feel validated that their community is a part of their learning holistic wealth. It's for for sophomores and juniors. They get to come for the entire day. That's a wonderful volunteering experience.
So in the 15 or so years organization, have you found that school districts have been more receptive to this, or there's still some lack of comfort?
Usually school districts are a little bit more receptive, unfortunately only after they've had a loss, which can be a bit frustrating. We'd love to get all of this training programs into the schools. We actually have a specifically dedicated program called Lifelines, and it is a comprehensive school-based curriculum that focuses on both the administration, so we're making sure those policy and procedures, crisis teams, safe messaging is all in place, and then it goes through the school psychologists, SACs, guidance counselors, and then through the implementation, which is through our through our PE teachers in health, because it's done through the health curriculum. We love implementing that programming during our schools. We've done a bunch of schools here in New Jersey. It's one of our most renowned programming. It's best practice, evidence-based, et cetera. Folks can learn more about it by going to our website at sptsusa.org. They can also call our office, and we do have a whole host of information, both for educators, parents, and trusted adults on our website.
Great. And do you have an active social media presence?
We do. We are on Facebook and we are on Instagram. We used to be on Twitter, but I don't think we're there any longer. Yeah.
And if people can just go right on and Google Society
Absolutely.
for Prevention of Teen Suicide,
If
they
they
can
Google-
get regular updates and activities.
Yep, and typically if they do Google anything about teen suicide, we're one of the #1 organizations that pop up. The other resource that I would absolutely recommend for folks in Monmouth County is utilizing Second Floor. You mentioned if you had like a teacher or somebody who was concerned about one of their students or somebody, it's a anonymous text talk program that we highly recommend.
That's great.
Another wonderful resource.
Cool. We have 15 seconds left. Is there anything you want to tell the audience?
I would just say, don't be afraid of teen suicide. This is about resiliency. We really want to make sure that we're building a resilient community and a strong community.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Samantha
you.
Parker, Director of Public Affairs and Development or I mix it up, Director of Development and
It's all
Public
good.
Affairs at the Prevention of Teen Suicide. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thanks. When we return, we will be with Sylvia, Executive Director of the Asbury Park Chamber of Commerce. Stick with us. This is Senator Vin Gopal. You're watching Made in New Jersey.
Your seat cushion can be used to grant wishes.
Who said that? Hello?
Really can, you know.
You talking to me?
Sure am. Because the airline miles you earn and donate to Make-A-Wish can help send thousands of kids on their wish trips. So donate to Make-A-Wish today.
You really should, You really should.
And give wishes wings, because wishes work wonders.
Welcome back. This is Senator Vin Gopal. You're watching Made in New Jersey. We return with Sylvia, the Executive Director of the Asbury Park Chamber of Commerce. Sylvia, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the Chamber of Commerce in the city of Asbury Park does?
I think it sometimes is better for me to tell people what we're not and then what we are. We're not a part of the municipality. You don't pay your parking tickets there, you don't buy beach passes there. What we are is a private nonprofit membership organization, but we do work very closely with the City of Asbury Park. We are a support mechanism for the businesses, and we represent our members at the local, county, and state level. In Asbury Park, we consider ourselves a little bit of a hybrid chamber. Traditional chambers do networking and informational meetings. The Asbury Park Chamber of Commerce, in addition to supporting the member businesses, also tries to help fill in the gap for tourism. The Asbury Park Chamber of Commerce tries to fill in the gap of not having a travel branch of the municipality, and we work very closely together with our mayor and council. The Asbury Park Chamber of Commerce, just like other chambers of commerce, we are a private nonprofit membership organization. The businesses in town and our chamber is the Greater Asbury Park Chamber, so it's any business that is interested in doing business with the Asbury Park market can join our chamber. We are not a part of the municipality, but we do work very closely with the municipality. Our chamber is considered something of a hybrid chamber because in addition to the traditional aspects of a chamber, we also try to perform the functions of a tourism branch for the city. As you know, Asbury has, in the last
Quite a
8, 9,
renaissance.
10 years, has really kind of exploded back on the scene. I like to say that it's an overnight success story that took 50 years. So we try to work hand in hand with our local government. We also represent our businesses at the local, county, and state level like traditional chambers do.
That's great. How many members approximately do you have?
Right now, we're at about 325 members.
Wow.
Actually, there was a story about that last year where it's a record-breaking number of members for the chamber. We had gone from about 260 in a year and a half up to 325, which is a really—
It's incredible.
It's a testament to my board and to the support that we get from our governing body and our state and county governing bodies as well.
Look, at Asbury Park we've seen has come a long way, and there's a lot happening on the waterfront, but also inside now on Cookman Avenue and throughout. There's some new breweries. There's a distillery there. What do you play a role in the ribbon cuttings of these venues? Do you help them? What is the relationship specifically between your office and some of these new businesses?
That's actually my favorite part of our function. We perform the ribbon cuttings. We have the mayor and council. They'll come to the ribbon cuttings. We get the press there, and we even bring the really big scissors and the great big ribbon to launch off our businesses and help them get some exposure for their beginning. And we also do ribbon cuttings for businesses that have relaunched their brand. We do, I'm sorry, scrap this piece of it. So yeah, the end of that was yes. Go ahead if you want to go with the next question, they can cut the rest of this off.
Yeah, so what, having come to some of the Asbury Chamber events, you have an incredible turnout. It's not just business people that are in Asbury Park, but they're from all over. But what's interesting, when I come to the Asbury Chamber events, you have a large number of small businesses. A lot of the mom and pops, cupcake stores and coffee shops and things like that. What kind of role do they play in Asbury's renaissance over these last several years?
We are primarily owner and very often owner-operated businesses. Not to say that there isn't a place for chain brands in communities, but Asbury Park
Are there
isn't
any?
known for
I don't
that.
know any chain brands in Asbury. Very few.
There's a brand for one chain at one end of town and
Right.
another at the other end of town as you enter and exit
Sure.
Main Street. But we've got several coffee venues, but they're all owner
Independent
operated. They're
operators. That's
independent.
fantastic.
People come to Asbury Park
Yeah.
for the uniqueness. Asbury Park is it's a living, growing, breathing, changing thing all of the time.
Sure.
Our owners are very committed to the success of not just their businesses, but the actual condition for the environment and the residents. It's a very cause-driven
Sure.
community, and people come to be a part of that. Asbury Park stays very true to its history of culture and architecture and certainly music. Music
The
lives
boss?
in
Yes.
Yeah. Another thing the chamber doesn't know, people call me at least once a week and tell me that they're going to be in town on the weekend. Where can they find Bruce? I'm like, if I knew that, I wouldn't have
Yeah,
to have
you'd
a
be here.
regular job. That could just be my job.
Do people really call once a week asking?
At
that?
least, yeah.
Wow.
I get at least once a week people ask me where they can find Bruce, and I'm like, if I knew,
Yeah.
I'd be there too. So follow me.
Yeah,
So,
that's great.
oh, sorry, that was just my glasses. Again, the uniqueness of Asbury Park and the things that you'll find there that you won't find in other communities is, I think, the draw of it. We are a 1.4 square
Sure.
mile community of just bursting personality, and it's very cause driven.
So tell me about you host some very big events throughout the year, Oyster Fest being one of them, right? What are some of the different things throughout the year that you do to try to bring people into town?
Okay, so the function of a chamber is it's to support the businesses that are part of the chamber. So everything we do has to have that component to it, as well as the component of attracting tourism, because that's what our mission is. One of the big things that we do is we have the Asbury Park Restaurant Tour, and that is a 4-hour, 25-plus restaurant and other eatery venue tour. It
So like a
sells
tasting
out.
kind of,
It
or?
is, and we do it in like most things with Asbury, we do it with a different flair. It's not where you would come in and walk around from one vendor to another to taste. We actually have 1,500 people participate that day, and it sells out every year for the last 3 years. And we move our guests around the entire city. So they get to see everything. They get to see that there's an indie movie theater. They get to see that there is a glass blowing studio. While they're going around the entire city, they get to see where the Stone Pony is, where Convention Hall is, but they're also trying 25 restaurants that they may not get
What
in
time of
the
year
rest
is
of the year.
this?
That is the last Sunday in April.
Okay.
It's a whole lot of fun. It's a self-driven tour. You come and then you get a map and you go to all the participating venues, and people do get all 25 in one day, which is kind of cool. And then some that have come every year, they'll just go to the new ones or someplace that they loved. Our Oyster Fest, as you mentioned it, which is actually where I met you. Part of the difference between the Asbury Chamber and maybe some traditional chambers is we like to integrate ourselves in creating the betterment of the environment as a whole. And when I began my position there, I asked my board, would it be okay if we did a scholarship program? As you know, I had been a local board member and then moved up to the state Board of Education, and my board was thrilled with the idea, but I now had to fund it. That was, I think, the first year you were running for Senate, and so I said, I'm going to do a Dunk a Politician.
I remember that.
Dunk a Politician tank, and anybody that was running for anything that ultimately represented Asbury
That was the first
Park.
year you did an Oyster Fest? Was in
That was
20,
my first Oyster
first one,
Fest.
2017.
Yep.
Okay.
And you came and you win the title of most dunked.
That means nobody likes me.
Yeah. You're such a sport because the water was
Cold.
It was cold.
Yeah.
It was cold, and you stayed there for so long. You must have been dunked 45 times,
Yeah.
and you
Oof.
raised a ton of money towards our scholarship fund. So we were able to give 3 scholarships to Asbury Park High
And
School
you do that at
seniors.
Oyster Fest, or
We did that at
you do the
Oyster Fest
scholarships
that
there.
year.
That's great.
And throughout, now what I do is throughout the entire year, a portion of the proceeds from our events like Restaurant Tour and our wine tours and our networking events go towards our scholarship funds, and we try to just grow those each year so that we'll have the offering to.
Is the scholarship geared towards any student in Asbury Park, or is it
the
Asbury High School?
Asbury Park High School.
Does it have a focus on business or anything, or just generic?
Yes, the focus is on entrepreneurship, and the question is a simple one for some people, but it also causes, there's reflection to really think about what entrepreneurship means to you. We don't require our applicants to be planning on going to college. They can use the scholarship to start their business, to fund their websites, or to go towards their college education. It's called the Roy Wartz Memorial Scholarship, and that was named after the president of my board, who had passed away about a week after I had started. But we had a really nice conversation about the importance of public education, and Roy was a big fan of the Asbury Park High School.
That's
so
great.
I thought that would be a great way to
great.
honor him every year.
And how did you get started with the Chamber? How long have you been there?
I'm going into my 4th year now. Honestly, it was an email that popped up in my inbox from a search engine. I had, for maybe 25 years, been involved in running traditional nonprofits, 501c3s, and then I saw this advertisement for an executive director for the Asbury Park Chamber of Commerce, which is maybe a little bit different than the road I had taken before, but I just sent out a resume and I got an interview.
That's great.
And their philosophy of being both a commerce-driven organization, but also integrated into helping the community, was what really sold me on being part of it. The Chamber does a lot of good in the community and works closely with the residents and other nonprofits to give them a platform for what they do to help the community.
That's great. Let's take 30 seconds if you can just tell folks how they can find the Asbury Chamber online, website, Facebook. What's the best way to connect with what's going on in Asbury Park?
We are on all the regular social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can go to our own website at www.asburyparkchamber.com or loveasbury.com or greetingsfromasburypark.org. We own a whole lot of titles. They
can just go on Facebook, type in Asbury Park Chamber?
Absolutely.
Cool.
They can call our office at 732-775-7676, or they can follow our favorite son.
Not with a request of where to
not where
Bruce is.
where the boss
Great.
is, but you've done a tremendous amount to support our community, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for your leadership with the Asbury Park Chamber. You've watched Made in New Jersey. I'm Senator Vin Gopal. We'll see you next time.